Coming up on this episode of Crime Family, the University of Idaho student killings that took place in Moscow, Idaho, just 2 weeks ago from this recording date. It had been reported that the roommates were concerned about one of the others being passed out in her room, which prompted them to call 911, not knowing that they actually had a quadruple murder on their hands.
Well, to me, when I'm looking at it, it looks literally like blood. Like, I can see it. Like, what else would that be? Like, most crime scenes, when you see blood, that's what it kind of looks like.
Yeah, that's what kind of makes me think if you're trying to sneak into a house and not be noticed, you probably would go through the back because there's no direct houses facing that back door.
So there's still a lot we don't know. It was very sketchy, very suspicious, and ultimately very sad for these 4 university students.
Yeah, and it has only been 2 weeks, so I mean, it's super early still in the investigation.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Crime Family. I'm your co-host, AJ. I'm here with my 2 sisters, Stephanie and Katie, just like always. Before we start today's episode, we just want to let you know about our Patreon community. If you like the show and you want exclusive extras like ad-free content, bonus episodes, a private community to connect with us, free merch, and an exclusive new true crime series, Doc Talk, consider becoming a patron. Doc Talk is like a book club for true crime documentaries. Each month, we'll select a new doc to watch and discuss it in full. We'll take your questions and discuss the topics you want. You have access to this exclusive new series at a Tier 3 membership, as well as all the other extras I mentioned. Join us on Patreon to continue the true crime conversation and build a community. We'd love to have you. By signing up today, you'll also get automatic access to our bonus episodes, including one about Sarah Boone, known as the Suitcase Killer, one about the updates in the Adnan Syed case, and a Halloween one. So check out the show notes for the link to become a patron today, or go to patreon.com/crimefamilypodcast. Also, we've recently launched our exclusive merch store on Redbubble. We're so excited to have the official Crime Family logo and designs on everything from t-shirts to stickers to mugs and hats. Check out our merch store to help support the show at the link in the show notes. And for today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the University of Idaho student killings that took place in Moscow, Idaho, just 2 weeks ago from this recording date. So because this case is still ongoing and it's still unsolved and it's developing, there's still a lot we don't know. And there are lots of theories going around out there, but very few concrete answers. And I know for myself, I've seen this case coming up a lot in my social media and on the news. It's kind of everywhere right now. So it's very high profile and it's kind of perplexing me, and I have a lot of questions, and I just feel like I need to talk it out with people. So that's why I'm going to be discussing this case today. And like I said, there's still lots of unknowns because it's still so recent. Like I said, it only happened 2 weeks ago from the recording date. So things are still coming in every day. So there's for sure going to be lots of updates as we go along. So in this episode, I'm going to be walking you through the timeline of events, the 911 call, and the list of facts about what we know as of now and what information we still don't know and hope will be coming somewhat soon. So this case has hit the news in a big way and has become a case that has gained a lot of widespread attention and around-the-clock coverage. And it's proven to be very perplexing, and I can't really wrap my head around it. So it was just before noon on Sunday, November 13th, when police in Moscow, Idaho, received a 911 call from a University of Idaho student saying that one of their roommates and friends was unconscious in her room. When police arrived at the home, they found the murdered bodies of 4 people inside the home. The 4 victims were 21-year-old Madison Mogen, 21-year-old Kaylee Goncalves, 20-year-old Xana Kernodle, and 20-year-old Ethan Chapin. All 4 were students at the University of Idaho. and all 4 victims had been stabbed in their beds, which were on the 2nd and 3rd floors of the home. 3 of the victims, Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, and Xana Kernodle, all lived in the home, and then the 4th victim, Ethan Chapin, was just there. He was sleeping over with his girlfriend, Xana, at the time of the murders. So it was a big 3-story, 6-bedroom home, and as far as we know, so there was only 5 people who were living in the house, and there was 1 vacant bedroom. But because Ethan was there staying the night, there were 6 people in the home the night that this incident happened. So because there were 6 people in the home and there were 4 that were murdered, there were 2 people that were not harmed, and both of them had bedrooms on the main floor of the house, and they were not harmed. They did not wake up or hear anything during the murders, allegedly. And so the next morning, it had been reported that the roommates were concerned about one of the others being passed out in her room, which prompted them to call 911, not knowing that they actually had a quadruple murder on their hands. CNN reports that the 2 girls, quote, summoned friends to the residence because they believed one of the 2nd floor victims had passed out and was not waking up, end quote. Police had never released the audio or a transcript of what the 911 call contained, and they also have not said who it was that actually called and initially spoke to the operator, but has been reported that the 911 operator spoke to several people who were at the scene during the call. And the police have said that one of the 2 surviving roommates' cell phones was used for the call. So for some reason, they're being very cagey about the details of the 911 call. So they were very hesitant to even say what they have said, and they wouldn't release audio of the call. They haven't released the transcript, and when asked, they wouldn't really say like who was the one who called or whose cell phone was used or who they spoke to. None of that information was anything that they were releasing, which was kind of frustrating for a lot of people. And I know for the families and stuff too, there's a lot of frustration with the lack of information that's coming out from the police. And that's just one example of it. When police arrived on the scene, the door to the home was open. Now, I don't know for sure. All reports just say that the door was open. I don't know if that means that it was like wide open, like actually physically open, or if it just means that it was unlocked. But the door to the home was open, and police did not notice any signs of forced entry or any damage to the home. So Kaylee Goncalves' dog was also found in the residence, alive and unharmed, and the dog has been given over to animal services once they discovered the dog there. And that part about the dog is going to come in a little bit later as somewhat important potentially. So all 4 victims were pronounced dead right after noon, as soon as the police arrived on the scene, and the investigation immediately began into what happened that night. Police were somehow able to determine that all 4 victims were killed between 3 and 4 a.m., so that would have been roughly 8 to 9 hours before the discovery of the bodies. So the police have ruled out the 2 surviving roommates or the friends that were at the home when the police arrived as suspects. So they don't think that they actually had anything to do with it. Now, I just want to go back to the details of the 911 call or what we know about it, because there's a few things to me that seem very odd. So the police have come out and said that the person who called 911 reported that an unconscious person. So my question is, they probably woke up. So, because I'll get into it a little bit later, but they were all out the night before at like different parties around town. And so, it was a Sunday morning. So the 2 roommates that had survived, they probably woke up at, 10 o'clock or whatever. And for some reason, they were concerned that one of the roommates was maybe passed out in her room, because maybe they saw that she had drank a lot the night before, or maybe they thought, they just wanted to check on her. But when they called, they said that there was an unconscious person. So they didn't say, there's someone dead in their bed, there's blood everywhere. So to me, that suggests that they didn't actually go into the room, because I feel like if they went into the room, they would have seen. I mean, the police came out and said later that it was a very bloody scene, as you would imagine, just based on the details that I'll get into. So the fact that they didn't mention anything about the blood, they didn't mention anything about them being dead, makes me think that they didn't actually enter the room, which is also weird because they said that they were trying to get her attention and she wasn't answering. So like they're probably knocking at the door. So maybe the door was locked. That makes me think the door was locked. They couldn't actually get in, because otherwise they would probably just open the door, right, to check on her. So if that's the case, it's very weird that the door would be locked, because you can't lock the door from the outside. So how does someone go in, kill someone, and then leave with the door locked behind them? It's very, very odd.
But you can lock a door from the outside depending on what kind of lock it is, right? Like one of those like little doorknob push locks.
Yeah, but then they would have been able to unlock it from the outside too.
No, I mean, you can lock it from the inside. You lock it the doorknob and then shut the door, and now it's locked.
Yeah, but then how did the person get out? Like someone goes into the room to kill them, and then
the door's open. They lock it through the doorknob while it's still open, and then shut it. And now it's locked. That's happened to me before. Like, I mean, you can lock yourself out of a room with those kind of locks, and that could happen in this situation. But
okay, that's true.
Yeah, if it was that kind of lock, like the doorknob lock.
And I feel like it would have to be. I mean, I'm assuming that the door was locked and they couldn't get in, because otherwise, if they're that concerned and the door's unlocked, you think they would just open the door and like peek in, right? If they're really concerned that their friend is passed out in the room.
Yeah, that's true. Were all the doors locked for all the dead people?
So they haven't released those details. We just know that the door to whoever bedroom they were concerned about, I think it was Xana, because I think it was on the second floor, but whoever room that was, they were concerned about the person inside being passed out. So, and I'm assuming like they would have had to have not been in the room, because like I said, if they had been in the room and saw the room, I'm assuming it, the police have said it's a very bloody crime scene, so they would have mentioned that in the 911 call. You'd think that there's blood everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when you were first talking about it. There's somebody passed out, and I was like, well, why wouldn't they say any more about it? Like, there's blood everywhere, like she's been stabbed. So yeah, it's probably likely they didn't see her.
Yeah, and like the police initially were responding to a call of an unconscious person. So going into there, the police didn't even know what they were walking into. The call wasn't, oh, there's someone dead in their bedroom. It's, oh, like she's unconscious, and let alone 4 dead people. So,
but how did she know she was unconscious if she didn't go in to check?
Well, she doesn't know. Well, she just said she said that she was concerned about her and she wasn't answering them. So she probably like maybe saw her the night before, knew she was really drunk, and then like the next morning is still sleeping at like 11:30, or the call was at 11:58. So they're that time they're concerned. She's not answering when they're knocking on the door. They're probably thinking like, oh, I hope she's if you know what I mean.
Yeah, if the door's locked, then it's like they know she's in there but not answering, so there's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So they were just concerned, and then they called friends over because they were concerned. I guess that was their first thing to do, was to call some other friends over, and then they called 911, and then
I would have tried to bust the door down, to be honest, if that was that concerned about my friend. But I guess, I don't know. That's just me.
Well, I feel like 9 times out of 10, people like, I don't know. I feel like people just, I don't know. They don't want to cause a scene. I mean, you should know, even though she is calling 911, but you know what I mean? I feel like for whatever reason she didn't. And also, I don't know these details. Like like I said, they're being very cagey about the details of the 911 call. I'm just thinking in my mind, like they have released that the call was for an unconscious person. So that leads me to believe that she didn't go on the call screaming, saying there's blood everywhere and she's murdered. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't the nature of the call when she called. So makes me think that obviously she was outside of the room. So like I said, that the police have ruled out these 2 surviving roommates and the friends that were there at the scene when the police arrived as suspects. So they don't think any of them were involved in the killing. So autopsies of the bodies of the 4 victims were completed, but results have not yet been released. Like I said, it's only been 2 weeks, so there's still lots of stuff that's going to be coming out that we don't know yet. All 4 victims were stabbed multiple times with what they're describing as a fixed blade knife. The weapon was never found, so they don't even have a murder weapon actually that they've found at all yet. Some of the victims had defensive wounds on their hands, suggesting that they did fight with their attacker in some way before being killed. There were no signs of sexual assault on any of the victims, and it's unknown at this time if it was just one attacker or multiple attackers who were there that night. So already things are very strange. If there's defensive wounds, then obviously they're fighting with their attacker. How does nobody hear that? They're probably screaming. So it's very weird that no one else in the home would hear that if they're like screaming a lot and fighting with their attacker. So, and the 2 surviving roommates said that they, were sleeping. They never heard anything at all. So, when they woke up the next morning, there was nothing that they were suspicious about because obviously they hadn't heard anything the night before. So just very kind of strange circumstances right off the bat. Police were able to kind of backtrack a little bit and give a little bit of information about what the 4 victims were doing the night before the murders, or the night of the murders, just earlier in the night. So all 4 victims were out at separate parties in town the night the murders took place. So Xana Kernodle and her boyfriend Ethan Chapin, they were both at an on-campus party at Sigma Chi fraternity from 8 to 9 p.m. and reports say that they returned to the home just before 2 a.m. So I don't really know that like 5-hour time frame between 9 p.m. when they left the party and then 2 a.m. when they get home. I don't know where they were in that 5-hour time frame, but they did get home just before 2. Madison Mogen and Kaylee Goncalves were out at another bar that night called the Corner Club, and then they can be seen on surveillance footage ordering food from a food truck at 1:41 a.m. And CNN reports that the girls ordered about $10 worth of food, and they waited about 10 minutes for the food to be prepared, and then they can be seen walking out of view of the camera shortly after that. And then they get a ride home and arrive back at the house at 1:56 a.m. So a neighbor's security camera actually captured the girls arriving home at this time, and that's how they know that they arrived at 1:56 a.m. And the manager of the food truck, Joseph Woodall, says that the two girls were acting normal and did not seem to be in any danger at all based on their demeanor. And based on this timeline, all the victims were back at the home by 1:56 a.m., which would have been about 1 to 2 hours before the murders occurred. Because remember, police said that they believe they were murdered between 3 and 4 a.m. And the two surviving roommates were already back at the home by 1 a.m.
So did that security camera not catch like some random person coming into their house?
As of now, no. There are no suspects, and that's never been released. So if they have that they're not putting that out there. So
okay.
Yeah, very weird. Maybe I'll explain a little bit later that maybe there's a reason for that, based on like some theories that are going around. But yeah, we just know that the neighbors like ring cam at their home captured the girls coming home at 1:56 a.m. And for the longest time, the police were actually saying that it was 1:45 a.m. And then, their families were adamant and they said, no, it's 1:56 because I guess they had seen the footage, the ring cam footage, or they just knew it was 1:56. And the police were still saying 1:45, which might not seem like a big deal, but, 11 minutes is a long, time frame when you're talking about, when you're trying to count minutes and hours that people are where they are. 11 minutes can be a big deal. So then the police did retract it and they did say, yes, it's 1:56 a.m. was the time. So 2 people from this timeline that I just mentioned have also been ruled out as suspects. So one of the people that's been ruled out is a man that was seen in the surveillance footage of the food truck. So he's wearing a hoodie and he can be sort of seen like kind of hovering by the girls, watching them as they order their food. He can also be seen chatting with a different group of people who motion to him that the girls are walking off. Like he's talking and they're saying like, oh, like, they're leaving. So then when he sees that, he walks off and then he kind of like walks behind them, but then he waves to the girls and then he walks away in a different direction. So it kind of looked like he might have been sort of watching them or looking kind of suspicious, but police said they have ruled him out as a suspect. Also, the other person that they've ruled out is the person who gave the 2 girls a ride home. At first, it was reported that it was an Uber ride, but then the record was corrected, and now they say that it was not an Uber. It was like a private third party who drove them home. So we don't know exactly what that means or who that was, but that driver, who would turn out to be one of the last people to see the girls alive, has been ruled out by investigators as well.
I don't know if you mentioned it already, but besides the boyfriend that was staying over, was there anybody else that night in the house besides the roommates?
So we don't know. Well, we know that there were 6 people in the home the time that the murders are said to have happened. So the 4 victims and the 2 other roommates. So they were the only ones who were said to be in the home at that time. Whether there was people in the home earlier in the night, we don't know that at all for sure. Or, I mean, the police haven't released that information. Like, again, the police always know more than they release. So like they might know that, but that's not been out there.
I was just wondering, maybe they had like friends over, like a gathering earlier in the evening and something went wrong or whatever, and some guy came back and did it, but
all 6 of them were out at separate parties. So I don't think they had people over. I mean, there have been reports out there that say that this was kind of a big, like a known party house. It was a huge, like 3-story, like 6-bedroom home. Like it's a huge house. So, they have a lot of parties there. So were always a lot of people coming and going all the time and people who were frequently at the house. But that night, like I said, the 2 of them were at the Sigma Chi fraternity party. 2 of them were at that other club. And then the other 2 roommates were home by 1 a.m. Doesn't say where they were at, but they were home by 1. So they were all out that night. So I don't think they had a party that night at the house.
Nobody else has like boyfriends or girlfriends that they know of?
No. I mean, they might, I don't know, but no one else that was there.
Okay, I was just curious because maybe it was somebody they. Anyways, all right.
Yeah, like I said, there's still a lot we don't know, but maybe the police know a little bit more. I mean, they probably do, but something else that came up during the early investigation was that there is a series of phone calls that were made to Jack Ducauer. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And he was the ex-boyfriend of Kaylee Goncalves. And between 2:26 a.m. and 2:52 a.m., Kaylee made 7 calls to him. All the calls went unanswered. And then Madison Mogen, so that was the other roommate, also placed 3 unanswered calls to him as well. So Kaylee's family have stood by Jack, and they say that the breakup between he and Kaylee was amicable and that the two remained really close friends. They say that Jack is like family to them and they do not consider him a suspect or anything at all. They also say that it's not unusual for Kaylee to call several times. Like, she would often do that with other family members as well. She would call and call and call until someone answered. Even if it was not an emergency or if it was something not super serious, she was known to call multiple times. So they don't even think the fact that she called 7 times at that time of night was suspicious. And so they don't really look too much into that. The police said that they are still looking into the phone calls as part of the investigation, but Jack himself has been ruled out as a suspect, according to reports. So as you can tell, they're ruling a lot of people out, but there's still no suspects as of right now. So they're just releasing a lot of information about who they don't think it is, but nothing about who they think it might be. And one other interesting thing that's perplexing me is that the news media and the police actually captured images of a red blood-like substance on the outside of the home. It's like near the bottom by the concrete foundation. And the red substance is in a dripping motion. So it's like it has been dripping, and gravity, it's taking it along its path. Like it looks like, when water is dripping down, like, the pattern it makes. So that's definitely what it's looking like, rather than, it doesn't look like blood splatter or someone rubbed up against it and got blood there. Like, it looks like it's dripping from somewhere. And now the substance has not been confirmed that it's blood as of yet. It still has to, of course, be tested in a lab to confirm, but it is deemed a suspicious blood-like substance. And if you look at the images that have been released of this substance, so there is a pipe that's right near there. So it could be something totally unrelated that's dripping from this pipe that has like a reddish brownish color. But if it is blood, this leads to many more questions. So how did blood get on the outside of the home near the concrete foundation at the bottom? It's very, very weird. Police have said that it was a very bloody crime scene, as you would expect with a quadruple stabbing. But I just can't understand how the blood would get there and then leak to the outside of the home. Like, it's just very weird to me. And the substance is located on the back wall of the home, which would be closest in proximity to the bedroom that Xana and Ethan were sleeping in. So very weird. I don't know. And in the picture, so if you look up the pictures of this, which I'm sure you probably all will now, but so you can see there's like 5 lines, like dripping blood. And then, so there's like 2 and 2, and then the middle one like kind of starts halfway down from where the other ones are. So it's like much shorter than the others. And if you look directly above that line on this picture, you can see some blood on the pipe. That's on the outside of the pipe. Well, I'm saying blood, but it's not confirmed to be blood. But you can see there's like this red substance on the pipe as well. That's maybe like it's dripping from the pipe to the wall at that point, which is why like that middle line starts a little bit further down, whereas the other ones are longer. I don't know. It's just very weird. Like I said, the police haven't confirmed that it's blood or anything. They say that it's suspicious, but it still has to be like confirmed for sure.
What else would it be if it like looks and it has the same consistency as blood? Like, what the hell else would be dripping down there? Like, I can't think of one thing. Fucking ketchup? That'd be weird too.
Yeah, like it's for sure 100%, or I think it's more than likely blood. But if it is, I don't understand how it got there. Like I said, it's a dripping motion. So it's not like blood splatter. It's not, somebody had blood on them and rubbed up against the house. Like, it's dripping. You can tell it's the dripping motion. So I don't know where it's dripping from. How bloody does the room have to be for the blood to be like dripping to the outside? It's just very bizarre to me.
Maybe it was on the murder weapon, like the knife, a lot of blood, and it just kind of like, if they were like running from the house, they still had the knife and it just like flung off onto the house and now it was dripping down. That's what I'm picturing, but it seems
that's
weird.
what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say too. Maybe it was from the knife. But
I mean, but it's just,
That seems,
I mean,
it
I
does
guess
seem far-fetched though, but I don't know.
it could be, but I just think like if you look at it just looks like it's dripping from above somewhere. Like it just doesn't look, I don't know. I mean, it very well could be, who knows, but like just looks like it's dripping.
Is there a window above there? Could it have come like from, maybe they tried to like escape out the window or something, blood dripped down, but then they got pulled back in? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, there is like a window. Like I said, it's kind of below Xana's bedroom, I think, on the back wall, on the second floor. But like it's near the foundation, like on the concrete foundation near the bottom where the dirt is. So I just find it weird. Like if it was coming from the window, that it wouldn't be anywhere else other than there. Like it's weird that it starts there. You know what I mean? Like it's not dripping from the window and you can see it on the wall. It's like the only place that it is like on the concrete foundation near the bottom.
Yeah, it's super weird. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like super weird, and
I found a picture of it.
Yeah, you see, look at the picture, right? So it looks like it's dripping for sure. It looks like a dripping motion, and you can tell like the middle one that's dripping starts a little bit lower than the others, right?
Yeah.
And if you look, I don't know if you can see it in the picture how zoomed in it is for you, but there's like, you can see a little bit of blood on the outside of the pipe, like right above that middle line. So it's like it's dripping from there, but there's nothing else anywhere else above that where there's blood. It just starts there. So I don't understand where it could be coming from. It's just very weird to me.
Yeah, I don't know. The picture is weird. I see it now. It's like very odd spot for it to be.
Yeah. So it doesn't really make any sense at all. Like I said, the police haven't confirmed that it's blood for sure, but
well, to me, when I'm looking at it, it looks literally like blood. Like I can see it. Like what else would that be? Like most crime scenes, when you see blood, that's what it kind of looks like.
Yeah, like I think it's very far-fetched to think that it would be anything else but blood. I mean, what are the chances that it's something else that just happens to be there that's not related? So I think it definitely, to me, it's probably blood. But like I said, it just hasn't been confirmed by the police at this time. So it's bizarre to me how it even got there in the first place and how it's only there and it's dripping from somewhere above, but it's not anywhere else. Like it's just super weird. That's the one thing, or one of the things in this case that I'm just like, I can't understand it.
Oh yeah, I'm like looking at the picture now too, and it does look like it's like seeping down from like inside the house kind of, and then coming down, which is super weird.
Yeah, and like you can see there's no blood anywhere else above that, right? It just starts there. Like you can see like the part where it starts on the concrete.
Yeah.
It's like near the bottom, right? Like that's the concrete like foundation.
Yeah, it looks like it's coming from like the material that the house is like made out of, dripping down onto the concrete. Yeah, it's super weird.
Yeah, super weird. So that's a big mystery for sure. So I don't know what's going to come of that, but I'm interested to learn more about what the fuck that is. So there's a man named Johnny Law. So he's a former crime scene investigator, and now he has his own YouTube channel, and he actually has a really good video up right now. And in this video, he says he was able to obtain a detailed sketch of the home's layout from the property manager. So I guess he just reached out to the property manager and they gave him the sketch, and it kind of shows the layout of the inside of the house. And police have said that the two surviving roommates were on the first floor of the home. Although a lot of stuff in this case, because it's so high profile, a lot of stuff is rumor, speculation. So sometimes it's hard to understand like what's actually been confirmed by police and what's just kind of like other information that's out there. But as far as I know, the police did say that the two surviving roommates were on the first floor of the house, which is like the main floor. So if you look at the house from the front, there's the main door that you would, most people would go into. And if you enter that door, you're on the first floor, like the main floor. And so that's where the two surviving roommates were sleeping. And two of the victims were on the second floor. So, and we believe that's Xana and Ethan. And they were in one room on the second floor. And there's also, because like I said, there's 5 people who are living at the house, but there's 6 bedrooms. So one bedroom was vacant that we know of, but we don't really know for sure which room was vacant. And that the vacant room is kind of important because it might kind of explain, depending on which room was vacant, why maybe nobody heard anything that was happening that night. So yeah, so like I said, Xana and Ethan were believed to be on the second floor. And then it's speculated that the 2 other victims, Kaylee and Madison, were up in their separate bedrooms on the third floor. So, like I said, the vacant bedroom may be important because it is directly below either Madison's bedroom or directly below Xana and Ethan's bedroom. So, because they said that the two surviving roommates were on the first floor, I am speculating that the vacant bedroom was on the second floor. So Xana and Ethan were on the second floor bedroom, and directly below them was the other roommate's bedroom that survived. So people are saying that this is like the only point where there may have been noise that's heard, because that's the only point during this where there would be like people directly above, because the speculation is that Xana and Ethan were killed first, and then the killer went up to the third floor. So, you know, nobody on the second, like the two people on the second floor are dead already. So when he's up on the third floor, nobody's going to really hear it. And then you're not going to hear it from the third floor when you're on the first floor. So they say that like that bedroom that Xana and Ethan were in was like the one time where maybe they may have been able to hear noise, like if they're hearing footsteps or commotion happening in the room above them. But they believe that because Kaylee and Madison were on the third floor, that like there's not really anyone that would have heard anything that's happening in either of those bedrooms. So that's basically just kind of what he's getting at in this video, where he's kind of talking about the outline of the house or the layout of the house, and just kind of describing, like, because people are like, well, how could nobody hear anything, or why would the other roommates not hear anything? And people were suspicious, but it would make sense if, you know, if you're sleeping, you're not necessarily going to hear footsteps. If you're in like a deep sleep, you're not going to hear footsteps above you if there's no screaming or anything, which is also weird if there's no screaming. And there's two of them, and if there's defensive wounds on their hands, obviously they were fighting back. So just the details are just confusing to me.
Also, I feel like when I was younger, that age, I could sleep through anything. I remember the fire alarm in the building was going off, and like I was still asleep, and somebody actually had to like come and shake me awake. And this was like a normal night, like I'm not like super drunk or anything, just asleep. And someone had to come and actually wake me up because there's a fire alarm like blaring throughout the whole building. So I mean, it's not far fetched for me to think that even if there was a little bit of commotion, that people just slept right through it.
Yeah, like I think it is very possible that people aren't hearing things. You know, you're in a deep sleep, you're not going to hear, especially, like I said, if there's no screams or anything like that. Even screams you might sleep through, but like if it's just footsteps, like, and also even if you do hear footsteps, you're not going to think it's weird because, you know, there are people in the bedroom above you. Like, you know, if you're sleeping at night and you hear footsteps above you, it's like, it's not going to be weird because you know there's people in that room. So it's not even something that you would necessarily even be concerned about, even if you heard the footsteps. But from this video, when he's kind of describing the layout of this house, so that's kind of what he's getting at, is like trying to pinpoint sort of which bedrooms were directly below and above the other ones, just kind of see if there was a potential to like hear what's happening in these bedrooms.
It's weird that they bypassed like the first floor bedrooms though, and they just didn't even bother. Is there theories out there that they had a vendetta against these four particular people, so that's why they kind of skipped the two at the bottom, or they just didn't think there was bedrooms down there? Like, is there anything that came out about that?
In terms of that, the police are also kind of being a little bit cagey and they're not saying much. So at first, they said that they didn't believe that there was a risk to the wider community. They thought that it was just an isolated incident, so they told people not to worry. Then they walked it back, and then they kind of said, well, we can't conclusively say that it was targeted or that it was isolated. So like they kind of told people to use caution. And then the reports are kind of saying now that they believe that it was a targeted attack in some way, either if it was one person that was targeted or if all four of them were. I don't know why all four of them would be, but they don't really know that. Or they've said like they believe that it's targeted, but again, that's all they're saying. They're not saying anything else about that, like who it was or if it was more than one person. So they're being kind of wishy-washy with some of the information that's coming out, which is a little bit confusing. But I mean, everyone's confused, so.
Did they ever like consider maybe like, since they were all out that night, like somebody had a beef with somebody while they were out, and this person happened to follow them back to where they were and kind of like hide out for a little bit and then attack whoever they were wanting to attack?
Well, my understanding is that they are looking at surveillance footage and stuff from like the Sigma Chi party that that Xana and Ethan were at. Like I said, there is that 5-hour window. So the reports say that they were at the Sigma Chi fraternity party from 8 to 9, and then they get home around 2 a.m. So we don't know where they were from 9 to 2. So that might be something, obviously that's probably something they're looking into as well. So we don't really know, but I'm assuming they're probably going to be looking at, the corner club where Madison and Kaylee were. They've already looked at the surveillance video from the food truck. That's how they got that initial person that they thought might have been a suspect, but was ruled out. So they are looking at surveillance footage, I would assume, from all those places, and they're asking for tips from anyone in the community, because that's obviously something they're going to try to think too. Like maybe there was something that happened that night. Maybe there was an incident. Somebody got very angry and then followed them home or something like that.
Yeah, I was also thinking maybe somebody came back with one of them to party longer, so there was like another person in the house with them, and then just when everybody fell asleep, they unleashed their attack for some reason. But yeah,
and like we know, like maybe that's possible. Like we don't know. I mean, we'll never really know. Potentially, like the 4 people, like maybe there was someone else in one of those bedrooms that we don't know about. The other 2 roommates were home by 1, but we don't know for sure that there wasn't like another person at some point with the other 4. Like we don't really know that yet, or maybe police do, but I don't think that's really out there. I mean, they've never said that there was more than 6 people that were in the house. So like I said, they're kind of being cagey and aren't saying too much about like the specifics of that. From the video of the house layout that this video is shown, I'm thinking, so this is also a theory that that guy Johnny Law says, like the former crime scene investigator, he's kind of just throwing it out there, speculated about like how he thinks the killer entered the home, and I also agree with him. So thinking that it's possible that the killer entered the home from the second floor patio, which is situated like at the back of the house. It's kind of on like a gravelly sort of hill. So I mean, if you look at pictures of the house, you can see it, but the house is kind of like on a hill, so the main floor and the front of it is like on ground level basically, but then as you go back further the house, like you're going uphill kind of. So at the back there is like a yard, and there is a patio at the back that you can access from the 3rd floor. You can walk out to the balcony. There's like a balcony overhead, but there is a patio underneath the balcony that it's like a just a patio. So but there is a sliding glass door that leads to the kitchen on the 2nd floor, and it's kind of assumed that like this isn't like a fenced off area, so anyone can kind of just walk in from the back of the house onto this patio and potentially through the sliding glass door if it's not locked. So if they came in through the sliding glass door, that would put them already on the 2nd floor, which would put them in the kitchen, and then Xana's bedroom is the one that's right close to that, so that would be the closest bedroom. So I believe that Xana and Ethan were probably killed first, as they were the ones that were on the 2nd floor, and then the killer made their way up the stairs and then killed Madison and Kaylee, who were in the other bedrooms on the 3rd floor, and then came down and then went out the sliding glass door the same way they came in. So it's entirely likely that the killer didn't even go onto the 1st floor. So if they were to enter through the main door at the front of the house, then he would have been on the main floor, and then the 2 surviving roommates would have been closest to them. So the fact that those 2 survived leads me to believe that the killer was never on the 1st floor at all, but entered on the 2nd floor. Unless it was a targeted attack and the person knew which bedrooms these people slept in and just went directly for those bedrooms. Like that's also a possibility too.
That was going to be my next question. I was going to say maybe they would have to know the layout of the house in order to know where to go and where those bedrooms were if it was a direct attack. I don't know, like if you're just going in just to go in a house to kill people, like your first instinct would go through the front door, would it not? But maybe to me it sounds more like they kind of knew the house and the arrangement of the house and where people were. So yeah, I don't know.
And like I'm also thinking too that, like Katie mentioned earlier, that the ring cameras from the neighbors never saw anyone going through, but maybe if they came from the back, that might be why there was no footage of someone coming into the house, because they came in from the back way where there might not be camera access. And maybe the person knew that or was thinking of that and wanted to come in through that back door so that they wouldn't be spotted.
Yeah, that's what kind of makes me think if you're trying to sneak into a house and not be noticed, you probably would go through the back, because there's no direct houses facing that back door, right? It's like if you go through the front door, there's people across the street and everything. But the back door, there's nobody really looking directly at the doors, like from other houses, you know what I mean? So that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and that's what I think is probably what happened, is that they probably came in through that back door. And like I said, there was no sign of forced entry, so I believe possibly that door was just left unlocked, that patio door. So the person was able to get in quite easily. And like Steph said, if it's someone who's been at the house before and knew the layout of the house and there was targeting specific people, then he kind of knew which room was vacant, which rooms people were sleeping in, and just kill. But I just feel like I don't know, I feel like in my mind, like if someone's going to have the gall to do that, it's like, wouldn't they want to, why would they want, if they know there's other people in the home, why would they want to leave two other people alive who could potentially have heard something, who could have, you know what I mean? Like that's leaving more sort of possibility that people might hear you or know something, right? Like if you're leaving them alive, which makes me think that maybe they didn't think there was other people in the house.
Yeah, maybe because like bedrooms typically aren't on the bottom floor. Like when you think of a normal house layout, the bedrooms are on the top floors. So maybe they just were thinking there was no bedrooms down there. So that's a possibility too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just weird. So I kind of think that the person probably came through that sliding glass door on the second floor and then didn't even go on the first floor at all. And also I was wondering too, like maybe it was the knife found in the kitchen? Like did the person come to the scene with the knife, or did they enter there and then see the knife, take it and kill them? They never released, like I said, they just said it was a fixed blade knife that was never found at the scene. They've never recovered the murder weapon, but they know it was fixed blade knife based on, I guess.
Was there a knife missing from the house that they know of?
They've also never said that. So I'm assuming probably the person brought it with them to the house, because I feel like that would be probably something that the police would kind of announce, right? Would say like, oh, well, there was a knife missing or something like that, right? But again, who knows what the police know, but they've never come out and said there was a knife missing from the house. So they just said that they never found the murder weapon, and they believe that it was a fixed blade knife, whatever that means. So something else that also has come out in the 2 weeks since the murders happened. So there were tips that came in that suggested that Kaylee had a stalker, but the police have not been able to corroborate or substantiate that claim at all. So basically there's no evidence at this time that suggests that this claim is true. And Kaylee's family was interviewed on CNN, and they have said that she never mentioned anything like this to them, and they say that she was a very open person and wasn't really private at all. So they think that if she knew she had a stalker, that's something she would have told them. But one thing I was thinking, like maybe it was someone told someone else that they were stalking Kaylee, and Kaylee didn't know about it. So that's a possibility too. Like she can't tell people something she doesn't know, right? So maybe someone was bragging like, oh, I've been stalking Kaylee, or you know what I mean? Someone said something to suggest that and was stalking Kaylee, even if she herself didn't know about it. But the police haven't been able to find any evidence to back this claim up. But it's kind of been like lingering out there that maybe she had a stalker, which would kind of go with the targeted theory. But if they were targeting just Kaylee, like why would they kill all of the other 3 people? It's just very bizarre. So like I said, there are still no suspects at this time. Global News reports that, quote, police have seized the contents of 3 dumpsters on King Road to locate possible evidence, end quote. So King Road is obviously the road where the house is located, and was 3 dumpsters near the home, and police have seized all the contents of these dumpsters. They've also been contacting nearby businesses to see if there was a knife that matched the kind that they believe was used in the killings that may have been purchased recently. Police have said that they've combed through over 1,000 tips that have come in, and they've conducted at least 150 interviews so far, and have seized over 100 pieces of evidence from the home itself so far in the investigation. But all the information I've told you is all that they know so far. So they have no suspects in mind, or at least none that they've released publicly. So one of the problems with a case that becomes so widespread and public knowledge is that there are kind of a lot of rumors that come out and like other speculation that the police haven't confirmed, but it's just kind of out there. So there were some like other events that were rumored to have possibly be connected to the quadruple murder. And so on August 13th of 2021, so this would have been over a year ago, in Silverton, Oregon, there was a couple who were the target of a violent break-in and stabbing in their home. 26-year-old Travis Jwetin and his wife, 24-year-old Jamie Lynn, they were both stabbed multiple times around 3 a.m. when a masked assailant entered their bedroom and began violently attacking them. Travis died of his injuries, but Jamie Lynn miraculously survived. The attacker was never found, and no suspects have ever been reported in that case. So because many of the details were so similar, and this happened just 400 miles away from Moscow, Idaho, people began speculating that the 2 murders were somehow connected. Police have said that they don't believe there's a connection between the 2 murders at this time. They also believed that, like I said before, the quadruple murder was targeted, but haven't given much other details. And then in another incident, there was rumors that there was a dog in the same town that was found skinned 3 weeks prior to the murders, and people were thinking that maybe that was the work of someone who was the killer. And I have no idea why people would assumed that there was this connection. Maybe because there was reports that Kaylee's dog was found in the home, but the dog was unharmed and was handed over to animal services. So that, I think that's kind of where that connection kind of came in. But police have said that there is no connection between the two incidents either. So at this time, they don't believe that this skinned dog that they found 3 weeks before has anything to do with it. So I think people are kind of just grasping on anything they can. Like I said, there's not a lot of concrete answers at all about what happened. And so we still don't know anything. And that's kind of where the investigation is now. The last few days, there hasn't been any news, really. There's updates, but nothing like that we didn't know before. So police are working around the clock, and the house is still cordoned off. It's a crime scene area. And so they're still working to find suspects, find more information. And like I said, they have over 1,000 tips that came in from people that they're still combing through. So who knows what they'll find. But it's just very, very bizarre. And I feel like it's everyone's worst nightmare, like having someone come into your home. And like if you wake up and there's like a masked person standing over your bed, like that's terrifying, gives me nightmares to even think about it. So it's just very bizarre. And they also still don't know if it's just one killer or multiple. I was kind of thinking maybe it's more than one person, because especially for Xana and Ethan, like if they have defensive wounds on their hands, how is one person fighting off an attack when the other person isn't waking up, isn't screaming, isn't doing anything like that? You know what I mean? Which makes me think maybe there was two people, but I don't know. They've also, police still don't know at this time if it's one or two. And there was a lot of talk too about, there's a lot of like possibly digital evidence too. Like there were suggestions that police should be looking into kind of maybe somebody connected to the Wi-Fi while they were in the home. Like if they had been at the home before, then their phone automatically connected to the Wi-Fi. So there's suggestions that they should probably look through the Wi-Fi history, see who was connected to the Wi-Fi between those hours, or if they were connected to a hotspot on their phone and didn't know. So there's kind of like things like that that they can kind of look into to see, but they haven't released anything that came from that, if they even did that. So there's still a lot we don't know. It was very sketchy, very suspicious, and ultimately very sad for these 4 university students. You know, Ethan was a freshman, I believe. 2 of them were in their last year, going to graduate. So, you know, all that potential is very, very sad. And I'm hoping that they can finally find who did it and, you know, bring justice to the family and their victims and these victims, because, you know, it's 4 people, 4 young people. It's just very sad.
It's super scary. Like, imagine being 2 that survived, like how vulnerable they must feel, because they were there asleep when all this happened, and it's very easily could have happened to them as well. So I can't imagine how they're feeling. That's super scary. Also, the fact that it was like a party house, there's always people coming and going. Just trying to find like fingerprints of a random person is going to be hard, because there's probably lots of fingerprints from people, like a lot of people coming in and out. So that's probably not helpful for them at all. So I wonder if they think there's more than one person. I wonder if there's more than one weapon that was used. Like, could they tell if there was 2 separate knives, 2 different knives that were used doing the stabbings? Or do they think that one of them was like kind of holding them down while the other one was doing it? So I wonder like what kind of information like that is going to come out.
Yeah, and I think that might come from the autopsy, because like I said, they did do autopsies, but they haven't released the details of the autopsies yet. So that might be something that will come out with that. But I think, I mean, for the other 2, like Kaylee and Madison, they were in their own rooms, in their own beds. So like one person can obviously do that. But I'm just thinking for Xana and Ethan, like there's 2 people in that room. Like that's where you're going to run into trouble if one of them is screaming and fighting off. And also the police were saying, or experts are saying, you know, that like if there was a fight, if they had defensive wounds on their hands, and there is a possibility that maybe the killer got cut with the knife as well during the fight, which could leave blood evidence and stuff mixed in with the blood that's at the crime scene as well. So that's a possibility that they could find that too. If there's like an unknown blood profile from someone that's like mixed in with the blood, that could be a lead for them. I couldn't imagine, like you said, I couldn't even imagine being the other 2 surviving roommates. I don't know how you would ever sleep again. I can barely sleep thinking about it when I'm home alone right now. But I couldn't imagine being the other 2 that, like you said, survived, and knowing it could have been them. It's just sad and scary.
Yeah, I still can't get over that blood thing the blood stain that they saw outside. But also, this is the reason why I lock my doors at night when I'm by myself. And I, like, sleep with the light on because stuff like this terrifies
Or
me.
not by yourself. Lock the doors anyway. Like, obviously.
Well, yeah, I lock my doors anyways.
Six people in this house and they still got murdered, so.
Yeah, like AJ said, I just don't understand how nobody else heard. Unless it was, like, a really old house and there was, like, stone in the wall and it's very soundproof.
Well, that's a good point, Steph, that you mentioned, because that's something else that came up too, was that because there was talk about like, well, how insulated are the walls or how soundproof is it? And there was like residents who lived in the house 25 years ago who lived in part of it who were talking about the house. But the addition, like if you look at the house, it's kind of like a weird shape. So like the back part of it was a new addition that just happened like recently. But the main part, like the main floor and stuff, was there for at least 25 years ago. I don't really know if that will answer anything about like insulation or soundproofing, but it is at least 25 years old, that part of the house. And then the other stuff was like added on after. So I don't know what that would mean for soundproofing, but it's also an interesting thing because that was something that came up in some of the videos I've seen as well, as people were talking about how insulated were these walls where no one's hearing anything. But like I said too, if you're just hearing footprints, you're not going to think anything, you know, because you know there's people in the bedroom above you. So if the one roommate in the first floor, like even if she does wake up and hears footprints or something, she's not going to think like, oh, that's weird, like because she knows there's other people upstairs. So unless she's hearing screaming or something, like you're not really going to be necessarily concerned, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean there's 5 other people in the house, so hearing someone walking around isn't going to be super weird. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's a super sketchy, super scary. And like I said, we're recording this episode on Sunday the 27th, which is just 2 weeks after the murders, and this episode's going to be coming out on the 30th of November, so there might even be some updates within this 3-day period that we might have to add in post-production. But yeah, we'll see. Of course there'll be updates and stuff as things come up. I mean, I'm really hoping it gets solved. Like the one that happened in that town 400 miles away was over a year ago and they still haven't found who did that one. So I'm really hoping this isn't a case of that where they just can't find a suspect. And also too, you know, as it's getting further and further away, like I doubt the person's going to stay in town. They're probably going to flee, right? So who knows where they could be now if they're going to flee the town. I mean, I wouldn't think that you would stick around, but also there have been cases too where people go to like the memorials for the victims after they do it. So it's not out of the realm of possibility they do that, but I would just think that you would like flee.
Maybe, but if it is like another university student or something, maybe kind of leaving would look suspicious. Or maybe, I guess, because if you're scared, you could just say, I'm leaving, get the hell out of here. But yeah.
Well, a lot of students have done that, apparently.
Have left?
Yeah, like a lot of students have left campus and went home and they won't return until they find the killer.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. So, I mean, it could be one of them.
yeah, true. And that's the thing. It's like we never really know because, like I said, the police always have more information than they release. So I don't necessarily believe them when they say they don't know. I mean, they might have a person of interest in mind. They're just not saying it. Because if you really do think it's this person, you're not going to put that out there if you think it is, giving that person more of an opportunity to flee or do something, right? So, I mean, it makes sense that you would keep that kind of close to the vest for now until you have enough evidence for sure.
Yeah, and it has only been 2 weeks. So, I mean, it's super early still in the investigation. So I feel like there's still a lot more that's going to come out in the recent days even and weeks to come. So definitely have to stay up to date on this one.
Yeah, and that was also, too, another point that at risk of sounding a little bit harsh here, but I feel like in some of the interviews I've seen of the family members, I mean, I think some of them are being a little bit unrealistic because they're very angry with the police that the investigation is still ongoing, like that they haven't found the person or that they haven't been telling the family things. It's like the police aren't going to tell the family information. Like if it's top secret investigative information, like they're not going to tell the families because once you tell one person, you've told the world basically. So they have to understand that the police have to keep things. I'm not saying that they did everything perfectly. I mean, I don't know the specific situation and I'm sure the family, I mean, right now they're still mourning, right? It's only been 2 weeks, but in some of their interviews, they're saying how like angry they are at the police and stuff. And it's like, well, it's only been 2 weeks. Like you have to give them a chance to investigate.
Yeah, and it could just be saying names that they think might be suspicious. I mean, that's how you can ruin an innocent person's life by like saying their name when they actually had nothing to do with it. So it does make sense that they're, keeping things close. but interested to see where this goes.
Yeah, and we'll for sure keep you guys updated with updates as they come. Like I said, I'm sure it's going to be lots of updates, so make sure you follow us on social medias to get all of that information. We'll probably put out an update episode as things come along, but I just wanted to discuss this one because, like I said, ever since it happened 2 weeks ago, I've been like following it, and like I feel like I needed to talk it through with someone and like get my thoughts out there, because it is kind of like puzzling me right now, some of the details of it, especially that blood stain on the outside. Like, to me, that's just bizarre. So I'm interested to see how it goes, and hope they do find the perpetrator for justice for the victims, and also so that they can't do anything like this again. Also, there's a lot of experts out there saying that because there was a lot of talk like, is it a serial killer and stuff like that, and experts would come out and said that some people say they don't believe that a person's going to do 4 killings their first time killing. They think that it might be someone with a history of killing, but again, that's speculation. No one knows. If it's targeted, you don't have to have a history, right? You're just angry and you want to do something, and maybe had something against all 4 people. I don't know. So we'll update you as things come out, and yeah, like I said, hoping it's solved soon. So that does it for this episode of Crime Family. So like I said, follow us on the social medias if you want to hear updates of this case and just get some, keep up to date with what we're doing. You can follow us on Instagram at Crime Family Podcast. We're on Twitter at Crime Family Pod 1, and our Facebook is Crime Family Podcast. You can also send us case suggestions and, your thoughts on the podcast, things you like, things you don't like, all your feedback to our email at crimefamilypodcast@gmail.com. And check out our website at crimefamilypodcast.ca. And you can also, if you love the show and you want to be a patron, definitely join us on Patreon at patreon.com/crimefamilypodcast. Join us at one of the 3 tier levels to get exclusive benefits that only patrons get, including mini episodes and bonus episodes and a new series, Doc Talk, like I mentioned at the beginning. So definitely check that out. And we also have a merch store open on Redbubble as well. So check out the link in the show notes to find our merch and support the show. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week with a brand new case. So take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.